Welcome, dear listener. Before you press play on this night, take a deep breath. Feel the air around you, still heavy, waiting. Because what you're about to hear isn't just a story, it's a heartbeat, wild, desperate, and breaking against the edge of destiny. They say every promise made under the moon comes with a price. Some promises heal, some destroy, and some bind two souls so tightly even death can't pry them apart. Tonight, under this same moon you're sitting beneath, I'll tell you a story about one such promise. A promise whispered in blood and flame, and kept in silence by a girl who never asked to be powerful. But it became unforgettable. Her name was Aria, and this is how chaos found her. The forest was alive with storms and fury. Wind tore through the branches, shrieking like something alive, like the ghosts of wolves long dead. Rain fell in needles, cold and merciless, slicing through her torn cloak. Mud clung to her boots, slowing her down, but she didn't dare stop. Behind her, the sound of pursuit. Snarls, howls, the kind of growls that could only come from wolves she once called family. Aria ran harder. Her lungs burned. Every breath felt like swallowing fire and ice at once. Her heartbeat thundered in her chest, too loud, too wild. If they heard her, it would all be over. Her vision blurred, her muscles screamed, and still she kept running. Because she knew what would happen if they caught her, because she had seen it once before, the way their eyes glowed red in the dark, the way mercy vanished when the Alpha gave the command. A flash of lightning split the sky, and for a second, the forest around her lit up like a nightmare frozen in silver. Trees twisted like claws, shadows leapt, and there, between one heartbeat and the next, she saw them. Shapes, 5 of them, maybe more, moving low, fast and deadly through the trees. Wolves, her pack, the Bloodfang, her own kind, but not her family, not anymore. Her foot slipped on a wet root, pain tearing up her leg as she stumbled. A cry escaped her lips before she could stop it. That single sound, sharp and human, was all it took. The forest erupted, howls answered from every direction. They had her scent. For a second, she pressed her palm against a tree to steady herself. Her hand came away slick. Not rain, but blood, her blood. It ran down her arm in a thin, dark ribbon, mixing with rain and mud. She could barely see, barely think. Only one thought hammered through her skull like thunder. Keep running, keep breathing, keep living. But under the pounding of her heart, another voice whispered, a voice she couldn't silence. It was soft, deep, cruelly familiar. You can't run from what you are, Aria. Her breath hitched. She knew that voice. It belonged to the one who had destroyed her, the one who had once called her his mate. Lucien, the Alpha who had looked her in the eyes, on the night of the full moon, and told her she was nothing but a curse. The memory hit her harder than the rain, the night of her rejection. The way the pack had circled her, whispering, afraid. The council branded her traitor, the burn of the silver mark on her skin, the mark of the Moonlit Promise, glowing where his touch had once felt like salvation. And then, the fire, uncontrolled, unforgiven, unstoppable. Her power had exploded that night, wild and blinding. Flames had swallowed the ritual stones. The sky had turned white, and when it cleared, half her pack lay on the ground, trembling or burned. Lucien had stood there, his expression not of pity, but disgust. He had whispered just 2 words before turning away. Leave, monster. Those words haunted her still, every night since, every storm since. Lightning crashed again, closer now. The scent of ozone filled the air. She pushed forward, her body trembling, exhaustion dragging her down. The trees began to thin. The forest gave way to a cliffside, a sharp drop, with the river raging below. The water churned like molten silver in the stormlight. Behind her, the howls, closer, louder, her pulse quickened. There was nowhere left to run. She turned, her back to the cliff, hands shaking, power prickling under her skin like a living thing desperate to break free. Her eyes burned silver. The first wolf appeared, black fur, red eyes, lips curled back to reveal fangs slick with rain. Another, then another. They surrounded her, their growls blended with thunder, and then silence. From the shadows, a tall figure stepped forward, cloaked, hooded, rain dripped from his hands. He wasn't a wolf, not yet, but his presence filled the clearing like a storm made flesh. Lucienne. Aria's heart stopped. For a moment, she couldn't breathe. I couldn't think, could only feel. The ache of every broken dream, every night she'd wished for him to come back. And now, he was here. Not as the man she'd loved, but as the hunter who would end her. His voice cut through the rain like steel. "You should have died that night." She flinched. He stepped closer, eyes burning like twin suns in the storm. "You think the moon will protect you? You're its curse, Aria. Nothing more." Her lips trembled, not from fear, but rage. "I never wanted this," she said softly. The wind swallowed her words, but he heard them. He always did. Lucienne's expression twisted into something cruel. "Then you shouldn't have been born." The wolves lunged. Aria threw up her hands. Instinct, pure and wild, surged through her veins. The air shimmered. A shock wave burst outward, silver light erupting from her skin. Wolves cried out, flung back by unseen force. Lucien staggered, shielded his face, and for one instant, Aria's power sang, not in pain, but in defiance. The silver flame. It burned brighter than the lightning, and it scared her as much as it saved her. Her strength broke. The light faded. Her knees hit the ground, mud splashing around her hands. She was shaking, gasping, barely holding on. Lucien's laughter echoed, low, dark, almost tender. "Even your power breathes you." He raised his hand. The wolves circled again. She looked over the cliff. Wind roaring, river raging far below. Cold, merciless, endless. And for the first time in her life, she smiled. "Maybe the moon isn't done with me yet," she whispered. Then she jumped. For a heartbeat, the world held still. Rain froze midair. Thunder stopped speaking, and Aria Vale, the cursed flame of the Bloodfang pack, fell into the arms of the river. The water swallowed her whole. Cold bit into her bones, but it also felt like freedom. Her body sank, her vision dimmed. Moonlight rippled across the surface, soft and silver, as if reaching for her. The mark on her wrist pulsed once, faint and steady, before the current carried her into the darkness. Somewhere above, the storm broke. Wolves howled on the cliff, their voices raw with anger and confusion. Lucienne watched the river churn, but she was gone, lost to the depths, or maybe reclaimed by something greater. Because beneath the black water, a soft glow began to bloom, like the reflection of a distant moon. Her eyes opened, silver, and her heart, though tired, still beat. If your heart is racing like hers, don't look away. Subscribe to Moonlight Mate Stories, where every heartbeat hides a secret and every promise under the moon demands a price. And so, the hunted girl disappeared beneath the storm. But her story was only just beginning, because somewhere on the other side of that river, another wolf had already started to run, not toward her, but for her. The moon watched, the night whispered, and destiny took its first breath. The fire crackles first, a slow, rhythmic sound, like bones snapping in the dark. Aria's breath trembles. She wakes to the scent of smoke, pine, and something male, strong, wild, dangerous. The world around her blurs, shadows bending, light shifting. The den is carved breath stone and silence, its walls slick with damp moss. The air hums with the scent of a wolf. Alpha wolf. Her body aches, every limb, every breath, every memory. Her skin burns where silver had once touched it. where betrayal still lingers like poison under her veins. And then, a voice. Low, rough, controlled. You should be dead. She jerks upright, heartbeat crashing against her ribs. Firelight flickers across a figure leaning against the far wall. Tall, sculpted, draped in darkness like it belongs to him. His eyes catch the light first. Amber, deep, watching. Aria freezes. Every instinct screams run, but her body refuses to move. He steps forward. The sound of his boots scraping the stone echoes in the den. The fire bends toward him as if pulled by something unseen. Aria Vale, he says, the girl who burned her pack. His words strike like a blade. She flinches. The memories flood back, the screaming, the smoke, the look in her mate's eyes as he turned away. The mark of exile burned into her flesh. Her throat tightens. Who are you? He doesn't answer right away. Instead, he studies her, the way a predator studies something that might either bleed or bite. When he finally speaks, his tone carries both threat and promise. Kael, Alpha of Shadow Ridge. And you're trespassing. The air thickens. Aria's heart hammers. Her fingers curl against the blanket beneath her. She's in his den, his territory, his world. The last thing she remembers is falling, icy Wautubi water swallowing her whole. Now, she's here, alive. But at what cost? You pulled me out of the river, she whispers. Why? Kyle's jaw tightens. He looks away, his expression unreadable. Because I don't like debts. She catches the faintest shift in his tone, a lie wrapped in truth. No one risks a border war to save an exile. Not without reason. The fire pops, sparks scatter like tiny stars. Her stomach twists with hunger and confusion. He walks closer, every step see deliberate. Eat, he orders, nodding to a bowl near the fire. You'll need strength to leave. His tone suggests there should, yet something in his eyes says he doesn't actually want her to go. Aria glares, but They're a bowl anyway. The soup tastes like salt and smoke, rough but warm, the kind of food made by hands that fight more than they cook. She looks up and finds him still watching her. What? She snaps. Kael's lips curve into something that isn't quite a smile. You heal fast, he murmurs. Faster than a normal wolf should. As her breath catches, she grips the bowl tighter. What are you implying? That whatever's in your blood isn't ordinary. The flames shift, turning her shadow into something monstrous, fair silver, veins glowing faintly beneath her skin. She drops the bowl, trembling. You don't understand, she whispers. It's a curse. Or a weapon, he counters. Their gazes lock. The space between them hums with tension, electric and heavy. She sees it then. The pull in his eyes, the curiosity he's trying so hard to bury. Kael takes another step. The air changes. Thick, charged. He's close enough that she feels the heat from his skin, the faint scent of smoke and pine that clings to him. You should rest, he says softly. Tomorrow, you'll decide if you're leaving or staying. I don't need your help. No, he says, Voit-to-be-e dropping an octave. But you do need protection. That word, protection, echoes inside her like a memory she doesn't want. Her mate had once promised that too, right before he betrayed her. You don't know me, she says coldly. Kyle's gaze softens for the first time. I know enough. You ran, you bled, but you're still alive. He turns away, his broad shoulders disappearing into the darkness of the den. That tells me everything I need to know. The wind howls outside, long, mournful. Aria watches the fire dance across the stone, her heartbeat refusing to calm. There's something about him, something buried beneath the hard edges and authority, something that feels like recognition, but she can't afford to trust anyone. Not again. She lies back, eyes open, listening to the storm. Each gust whispers her name, Each rumble of thunder reminds her of what she's lost. And yet, somewhere deep inside her chest, where pain and instinct collide, a spark flickers to life. She's not sure if it's fear or hope. The fire dies down, the forest breathes, and in the dark, two hearts beat, one bound by secrets, the other by fate. He saved her body, but he might be the one to break her soul. If you can feel the storm in her heartbeat, don't look away. Subscribe to Moonlight Mate Stories, where danger meets desire, and every heartbeat hides a secret. Night drapes itself over Shadow Ridge like a second skin. The forest hums with the breath of wolves, distant howls threading through fog, soft and mournful. Inside the den, silence stretches long and uneasy. Aria lies awake on a rough blanket, staring at the flickering shadows cast by the dying fire. Her body still aches from the fall, from the silver that scorched her blood, but it's the ache inside that won't stop screaming. Sleep doesn't come easy for the hunted. When it finally does, it drags her back, not into peace, but memory. The moon is full in her dream, swollen and merciless. Its light spills across the ceremonial grounds of the Blood Pine Pack. Every wolf stands in a perfect ring, heads bowed. The air smells of earth, smoke, and judgment. Aria stands at the center, trembling, dressed in the white linen of the chosen, the mate bond ceremony. Tonight was supposed to be hers. Lucien stands before her, tall, golden, beautiful in the cruel way of alphas who've never been denied anything. His eyes meet hers, cold and distant. Once, they'd burned for her. Now, they look through her, past her, as if she's already gone. "Lucien," she whispers, voice shaking, "say the vow." He doesn't. Instead, his hand slides around another woman's waist, Raven, the Beta's daughter, sleek, perfect. The one everyone said fit beside an alpha. The murmurs ripple through the crowd like blades. Aria's heart stutters, her breath breaking. "No," she whispers again, as if saying it might undo it. "You promised." Lucian's eyes glint with something like pity, or maybe guilt. It's hard to tell when both taste the same. "I can't bind myself to that," he says, his voice carrying across the stones, "not to a cursed flame." The words hit her harder than claws. Her vision swims. The mark on her wrist, the faint shimmer of silver light that had once been their promise, flickers and dies. Something inside her shatters. The crowd recoils as her power, untamed, surges outward. Silver fire bursts from her skin, wild, hungry, desperate. It devours the air, the earth, the sacred stones that have stood for centuries. Screams echo through the night. Wolves shift, shields rise, but nothing stops it. Her fire isn't just heat, it's pain made visible. It's a heartbreak turned weapon. When the flames finally die, the world is ash and silent. And standing in the ruins of what was meant to be her new life, she hears the council's decree. Aria Vale, branded traitor to her pack, exiled, cursed. Aria gasps awake, sweat slick on her skin, heart pounding against her ribs. The fire in the den is nearly gone, just a dull orange glow. But someone else is awake too. Kael sits nearby, his back to her, a rag in one hand, cleaning the blade of a hunting knife. The light plays across his face, harsh angles softened by exhaustion. His shirt is open at the collar, revealing the faint scar running across his chest, a scar that looks old and deep. Aria doesn't speak. She watches the way his shoulders move, how his jaw tightens every few seconds, as if fighting an invisible thought. Finally, he breaks the silence. "You cry in your sleep." She stiffens. "You listen while I sleep." "Hard not to," he replies evenly. "The walls in this den aren't thick." She looks away, embarrassed. "It's just dreams." "No," he says, setting the knife down. "That wasn't a dream." Her gaze sharpens. "What do you mean?" He meets her eyes then, a quiet storm behind them. I've heard that name before, the cursed flame, the girl who burned the stones. Aria's breath catches. Is that why you saved me? She whispers. Because you wanted to see if the stories were true. Kael stands, the movement smooth but tense. I saved you because you were dying on my border, he says. Then, quieter, and maybe because I recognize the look in your eyes. And what look is that? He turns toward the fire. The one of someone fate chewed up and spat out. The words hang heavy. For a long time, neither speaks. The flames whisper instead. When he finally looks back, his voice is softer. You think you're the only one fate ruined? Something flickers behind his eyes, pain buried deep, carefully hidden. She almost asks what he means. But something in his stance stops her. He's not ready to tell, and she's not ready to care. Days pass inside Shadow Ridge like slow-moving shadows. Aria's wounds knit fast, too fast. The silver lines fade, replaced by pale scars that pulse faintly whenever the moon rises. The real keeps his distance. Sometimes she catches him watching her, from the doorway, from the training yard, from across the fur. They're ever close enough to touch, always close enough to make her heartbeat stumble. He speaks little, but every word he does offer carries weight, like a man used to command. Still, she feels it, the tension between them, that invisible pull neither of them dares to name. One night, as she tends the fire, she finally asks, "Why do your wolves fear you?" Kael's gaze lifts slowly. Because they should. You don't believe that? A faint, humorless smile ghosts across his lips. I killed my own beta last year. Do you think that kind of thing inspires trust? Her eyes widened. You killed H-Breathe, doesn't flinch. He betrayed me. She studies him, the edge in his voice, the pain behind the control. You're haunted, she murmurs, just like me. For the first time, he doesn't look away. Maybe that's why you're still alive. The air tightens again, charged and unspoken. Aria swallows, feeling that dangerous closeness crawl under her skin. Whatever's broken in you, she says quietly, you're still trying to protect others from it. Kael's eyes soften, a flicker of emotion he hides too quickly. And whatever's broken in you, he replies, you're still trying to outrun. Later, when the night deepens and the pack's howls fade into the distance, Aria stands by the mouth of the cave. The moon sits heavy above the pines, full, luminous, and cruel. The mark on her wrist glows faintly silver, the Moonlit Promise. Once it meant love, now it means loss. Her reflection shimmers faintly in the nearby pool of water, eyes glowing back at her, half human, half something else. She whispers to the night, "Who am I now?" The forest doesn't answer, but something in the air shifts, a hum, soft and ancient. Behind her, footsteps. Kael again. He doesn't speak, just stands beside her, close enough that their shoulders almost touch. You're not the only one asking that, he says at last. She glances at him. You too? His jaw tightens. The night my beta died, I lost my mate too. Her breath catches. She wasn't innocent, he interrupts. She betrayed the pack. But still, the bond doesn't care about justice. His voice cracks, just slightly, and in that small fracture, Aria sees the truth. This man who commands wolves, who moves like the storm, carries a heart full of ghosts. They stand in silence. The night wraps around them, two souls ruined by fate, both pretending not to feel the betrayal that binds them. Aria looks at the sky, then at him. Maybe fate didn't ruin us, she says softly. Maybe it's just trying to rewrite us. Kael's eyes glimmer in the moonlight. Or destroy what's left. A pause. A heartbeat. A flicker of heat that neither of them dares to name. The wind shifts again, carrying a scent neither of them recognizes. Something cold, metallic, wrong. Kael's expression hardens. He turns toward the forest. Someone's watching, he mutters. Aria's pulse spikes. Who? He doesn't answer, already moving into the shadows, every line of his body sharp with alpha instinct. The fire behind them crackles once and dies. Two broken souls, one buried truth. Fate isn't done with them yet. If you can feel her pain, if you've ever been torn between what you lost and what still burns, don't look away. Subscribe to Moonlight Mate Stories, because under this moon, every wound remembers its flame. The night breaks slowly over Shadowridge, the kind of dawn that bleeds gold and silver through fog, painting the world between dream and waking. But for Aria, sleep never truly comes. Every time she closes her eyes, she hears whispers, ancient ones, calling her name from beyond the veil of the forest. Kael senses it too. He doesn't say it, but she sees the tension in him, the way his jaw sets when the wolves howl toward the eastern ridge, where no one dares to wander. By the third morning, the decision is no longer hers to make. He appears at her door, silent as the wind. His eyes, amber and restless, fix on her. There's a place, he says, a grove older than Shadowridge. My father called it the Forest of Echoes. The elders believe it listens. She frowns. Listen to what? To the blood. Aria's heart beats once hard. Why are you telling me this? Because whatever's inside you, the forest might know its name. He doesn't wait for her reply. He just turns, expecting her to follow. And though every part of her wants to refuse, wants to stay in the fragile safety she's built in that den, something deeper answers. A pull. A quiet voice in her bones whispering, go. The forest stretches endless before them. Not the wild woods near the pack's borders. This one breathes differently. The air hums, thick with the scent of moss and moonlight. Branches twist above like cathedral arches, filtering sunlight into pale, silvery shafts. Every step feels like a trespass. Kael moves with instinctive grace, his presence both shield and storm. He doesn't speak much, but his gaze keeps cutting back to her, checking, measuring, protecting. Aria trails behind, her fingers brushing bark. The trees are etched with symbols, faint spirals, crescent marks, runes older than the packs themselves. When she passes, they shimmer faintly, responding to something in her blood. Kael notices. He slows, his expression hardening. No one's touched these symbols in centuries. Maybe they remember me, she says quietly. He doesn't answer. The air thickens the deeper they go, until even the wind seems to whisper her name. Aria, sometimes in one voice, sometimes in many. It doesn't sound human. Hours pass like breaths. The world grows quieter. The forest shifts tone, trees thinning into a clearing, lit by a single beam of pale light. At its center stands the moon's tear. A massive stone, smooth as glass, shaped like a drop of frozen light fallen from the heavens. It hums softly, low and resonant, the way thunder does before it strikes. Aria steps closer, her pulse fluttering in her throat. Kael stops her with a hand on her arm. Be careful, the tear doesn't welcome lies. And if I don't know what truth it wants, then it'll decide for you. She nods, uncertain, trembling, and steps into the light. The moment her fingers touch the stone, the air shatters. Light bursts from beneath her skin. Pure silver, sharp and alive. It wraps around her like ribbons, lifting her off the ground. Her breath catches. Her heart roars in her chest. Visions flash through her mind, wolves kneeling beneath a split moon, rivers of fire crossing mountains, a voice older than time murmuring through her veins. Who are you? She gasps. The voice answers not in sound, but in memory. Images unfold, a woman with eyes like the night sky, standing atop a cliff, silver flames burning from her palms. Behind her, armies of wolves bow their heads. The woman speaks, her voice echoing through Aria's bones. The one who burns shall heal the broken moon. The grove trembles, the trees groan like they're bowing. Even Kael, Alpha of Shadow Ridge, drops to one knee as light floods the clearing. Aria screams, not from pain, but from recognition. The silver flame within her surges outward, forming the shape of a great wolf, her wolf, made of fire and moonlight. It howls once, a sound that splits the air and travels far, far beyond the forest, reaching every pack that still draws breath. Then the light fades. Aria collapses to her knees, panting, trembling. Kael rushes to her, catching her before she hits the ground. His hands are warm against her cold skin. "Aria," he whispers, voice raw. You are her." "Who?" "The Moonborn, the flame of renewal, the prophecy. It's about you." She shakes her head violently, trying to pull away. "No, that's impossible. I'm not." "You touched the tear," Kael interrupts, eyes fierce. "It doesn't lie." "I didn't ask for this," she snaps, shoving him away. "I just wanted to survive." The wind picks up, furious, alive, swirling around them as if echoing her turmoil. The light from the stone flickers again, dimming like a heartbeat fading. "I'm not your savior," she whispers. "I'm the girl who destroyed everything she loved." Kael stands slowly, his expression softens, not pity but understanding. "You can't destroy what was already rotting," he says quietly. "Maybe your fire was never meant to burn, but to purify." Aria looks up at him, her eyes wide and glassy. The air between them hums, a thread of something ancient binding them in that moment. "And what about you, Kael?" she asks. "What did fate burn from you?" He doesn't answer, but his silence says enough. They remain there until the sky bleeds twilight. The forest hums around them, no longer hostile, but watchful. Aria sits at the base of the stone, tracing its glowing veins with trembling fingers. Every mark seems to pulse in rhythm with her heart. Kael paces nearby, restless, the weight of revelation heavy in his steps. "If the prophecy's true," he says, "then you're not just power. You're hoping, for all of us." She laughs, low, bitter. "Hope? The packs hate me. The council would rather see me dead." "Then we'll make them see differently." She shakes her head. "You talk like a man who believes fate can be reasoned with." Kael stops pacing. His gaze finds hers. "Maybe I don't believe in fate anymore," he says, "but I believe in fire that refuses to die." Aria looks away, afraid of what those words awaken in her, because something inside her, something long buried, begins to stir. Not fear, not despair, but possibility. When the first wolf howl echoes in the distance, it's not one of theirs. It's too low, too cold. Kael's head snaps up. His entire posture changes, protective, dangerous. "We're not alone." Aria rises, her pulse quickening. "What is it?" "Scouts. From the council, maybe, or worse." She glances back at the stone. The light around it flickers faster now, like a warning. "They felt it," she whispers. "They felt me awaken." Kael grips her arm, firm but not harsh. "Then we move. Now." They race through the forest, shadows twisting around them. The wind carries distant growls, hunters closing in. Aria's breath burns in her throat, every muscle screaming. The mark on her wrist glows like molten silver, guiding them through the dark. Kael's voice cuts through the noise, sharp, commanding. "Stay close." A snarl erupts behind them. A wolf, massive, its eyes red with fury. Not natural, twisted by something older. Kael shifts mid-stride, his body snapping into the form of a black wolf streaked with scars and moonlight. He collides with the beast, their bodies crashing through underbrush in a blur of claws and blood. Aria skids to a stop, heart hammering. She feels the power in her veins rise again, begging to be released. "No," she whispers, "not again, not like before." But Kael's cry, half snarl, half pain, rips through the night. And that's enough. Her silver fire explodes outward, wrapping the clearing in a blazing storm. The beast howls, blinded, burned, and collapses into ash. Kael emerges, panting, bleeding from a deep gash across his shoulder. His wolf form fades, leaving him human again, bare, raw, eyes wide as they meet hers. "You didn't just fight it," he murmurs. "You commanded it." Aria's hands shake. "I can't control it. It's too much." "No," he says, stepping closer. "It's you, all of it. The forest, the flame, the prophecy. It's in your blood, but it doesn't own you." She stares at him, at the truth in his voice. The ground between them is scorched, the air still trembling, and in that ruin of firelight and fear, something unspoken passes between them. Not trust yet, but recognition. Two souls bound by something older than destiny. The forest had spoken, the moon's tear had chosen, and for the first time, the cursed flame burned not to destroy, but to protect. But power never awakens without consequence, and somewhere beyond the ridges, eyes watched, cold, calculating, waiting for the moment to strike. Because fate may have chosen her, but the world wasn't ready to bow. The storm broke without warning. Lightning split the night sky above Shadow Ridge, painting the mountains in white fire. The air reeked of blood and betrayal. Howls echoed from every direction, dozens of them, each carrying the scent of rage, fear, and something worse, vengeance. Aria stood at the edge of the ritual clearing, her hands trembling, silver light flickering beneath her skin like a living flame. Around her, Kael's pack was already forming their defensive circle. Fangs bared, hackles raised, ready to die for their alpha. But Kael's eyes weren't on them. They were on her. He didn't need to say a word. The moment their gazes met through the chaos, Aria knew what he was thinking. Run. Yet something in her refused to move. For weeks, she had fought to control the burning within her veins, to cage the wild, moon-born fire that wanted to consume her. But now, it wanted out. It begged for release. And with every heartbeat, the air grew hotter. A single wolf stepped from the shadows across the clearing. His coat was black as obsidian, his eyes burning with crimson fury. Ronin, alpha of the Iron Fangs. "Shadow Ridge shelters a curse," he snarled, his voice carrying over the wind. "Give us the witch, Kael, or burn with her." Kael's response was a growl, low and lethal. His wolves howled behind him in unison, a warning, a promise of blood. But Aria could feel it, the way the air bent, the way the ground vibrated under her feet. The fire inside her wasn't waiting anymore. She whispered, voice breaking, "It's happening again." Kael turned to her, eyes sharp, desperate. "No, listen to me, Aria. Control it. You can fight it." But the storm wasn't listening. Neither was fate. The first attack came swift and brutal. Iron Fang wolves leapt from the tree line, slamming into Kael's guards. Claws raked flesh, bones cracked. The night exploded in violence. Kael shifted mid-stride, his body stretching and breaking into that of a massive shadow wolf. He collided with Ronin in a blur of motion, their snarls tearing through the roar of the wind. Aria stumbled backward, hands over her ears, but the fire surged through her like molten steel. She saw flashes, wolves burning, eyes screaming, Kael falling beneath claws. Her heart clenched in terror. She wanted to help, but every time she reached for her power, it reached back harder, hungrier. And then she saw him fall. Kael, her unwanted savior, her infuriating protector, thrown against the ritual stone, blood spilling from a wound near his shoulder. The world went silent. Her pulse slowed, then thundered back with such force it shook the ground. The silver glow in her eyes exploded into blinding white. Flames roared outward, devouring rain, air, and shadow alike. Wolves screamed and scattered. The earth cracked. Aria's power, the curse she had tried to bury, rose in full. She didn't remember how long it lasted, maybe seconds, maybe forever. When the light dimmed, everything around her was ash and smoke, wolves, dead or gone. The clearing, scorched, the moon, shrouded behind black clouds, and Kael, Kael lay unmoving on the ground, chest barely rising. Aria dropped to her knees beside him, trembling hands hovering over his wound. No, no, no. Her voice was a whisper, her heart a storm. She wanted to heal him, but her fire only burned. She wanted to hold him, but her touch could kill. Tears fell onto his skin, sizzling faintly where they touched. Footsteps. She turned. The survivors of the Shadow Ridge pack stood at the edge of the clearing, eyes full of fear, not of the enemy, of her. One of them, a young she-wolf Aria had seen training days before, spoke first. "You said she could be trusted." Her voice cracked, but her glare was sharp as glass. "You brought her here, Alpha, and look what she's done." The others murmured, the sound like shifting knives. "Curse. Witch. She burned them all." Aria shook her head, backing away slowly. "I didn't mean... Enough." The word came from one of the elders, his fur matted with ash. "The prophecy warned us. The one who burns will destroy before she heals. Get her away from here before she finishes the rest of us." Kael stirred faintly, his voice hoarse and weak. "Stop, she's not..." But no one listened. And Aria, she couldn't bear it. Not the hatred, not the memories, not the guilt crawling up her throat. Every scar inside her screamed the same truth she'd spent her whole life trying to deny. She didn't belong anywhere. Not in her old pack, not here, not even beside the one man who saw through her fire. The rain started again, heavy and cold. She turned once, looked down at Kael's face, pale and still, and whispered through trembling lips, "I'll come back when I can control it, when I'm not a monster." Then she ran, into the storm, into the unknown. The forest swallowed her whole. Her bare feet splashed through puddles, mud clinging to her skin. Every step away from Shadow Ridge felt like tearing a piece of her soul out and leaving it behind. Lightning illuminated her face, wet with rain and tears, streaked with ash. She didn't know where she was going, only that she couldn't stay. Behind her, the war she'd sparked raged on. Ahead of her, destiny waited, cold and unyielding, and in between, only silence. Hours passed before her fire dimmed enough for her to collapse beside an old tree. Her hands trembled uncontrollably. The silver glow faded from her eyes, leaving only exhaustion. "I'll never belong anywhere," she whispered into the night. The forest answered with the hollow cry of an owl. And somewhere far behind her, the Shadow Ridge pack mourned. Not just for the fallen, but for the Alpha who had dared to care for a cursed girl. What she didn't know, what no one knew, was that Kael's heart had not stopped, that the blood she thought she spilled carried her fire now, burning quietly beneath his skin. That destiny wasn't finished with either of them. The world had taken its first strike against the prophecy, but the prophecy had only begun to fight back. The moon remembers every promise, even the ones made in blood. The wind carried those words long after she disappeared beyond the ridge. And deep in the shadows of the mountains, something ancient stirred. Something waiting for the next moonrise. The night had gone utterly still. Even the wind seemed afraid to move through the trees. Far from Shadow Ridge, deep in the forgotten woods where the moon barely reached, a broken watchtower leaned against time itself. Its stone walls were cracked, moss-covered, and silent, the kind of silence that carried the weight of old battles and older ghosts. Inside that ruin, a single flame flickered weakly against the dark. Aria sat near it, knees drawn to her chest, her cloak damp from rain and sweat. Her hair hung loose, tangled with leaves and blood. Every breath hurts. Every heartbeat sounded too loud in the emptiness. The silver mark on her collarbone still glowed faintly. The mark of the Moonlit Promise. Her curse, her destiny, her shame. She pressed her palm over it, trying to make it fade, but it pulsed instead, warm, alive, as though mocking her. "Stop," she whispered to herself. "Just stop." But the fire inside her wouldn't. It never did. A sound outside, soft, deliberate. She froze. A shadow moved through the rain, slow, careful, familiar. Her heart stuttered. No. It couldn't be him. She had left him broken, barely breathing. She'd seen the blood herself. The door creaked open. Moonlight slid across the threshold, glinting off wet boots, a strong jawline, eyes that burned like amber behind the shadows. Kael, alive. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the rain dripping from his coat and the slow, deliberate rhythm of his breathing. He looked different, rougher, colder. His wound was bound in torn cloth, dark with dried blood. His face was drawn, pale, but his gaze hadn't dimmed. "You shouldn't be here," Aria said softly, though her voice trembled. Kael stepped closer, his boots echoing against the stone floor. "Neither should you." He stopped near the fire, crouching. His hand extended slightly toward the heat, and she saw the tremor in his fingers. He was still weak, and yet he'd found her. "How did you—" "Your scent," he said simply. "You tried to mask it with river water. Didn't work." There was no anger in his tone, no judgment, just exhaustion, and something deeper, something that sounded like relief. "You came all this way just to tell me I'm bad at hiding?" she asked, trying to mask her nerves with sarcasm. A ghost of a smile tugged at his lips. "Maybe." He paused. "Or maybe I came because I wasn't ready to let you disappear." The words hit her like a blow. She looked away, staring into the fire. "You should have stayed with your pack." "My pack turned on me the moment I defended you," he said quietly. "You think I still have one?" Silence fell again, thick and heavy. The flames crackled softly, throwing gold across his face. For the first time, she noticed the shadows under his eyes, the weariness in his shoulders. He looked like a man who had lost too much and was still standing out of sheer defiance. She knew that kind of pain. Aria shifted slightly closer to the fire. Her voice was quieter when she spoke again. "You shouldn't have followed me, Kael. I didn't follow you. Then why are you here?" He met her gaze, steady, unflinching. "Because you don't deserve to be alone with that kind of guilt." Her breath caught. "You don't know what I deserve." "Maybe not, but I know what it feels like to be hunted by your own mistakes." For a while, the rain was their only witness. He leaned back against the wall, wincing slightly. She watched as he unwrapped the blood-soaked bandage from his shoulder. The wound looked deep, a gash carved by claws, half-healed and angry. Without thinking, Aria reached for him. "Let me—" He caught her wrist before she could touch him, not roughly, but firmly. His skin was warm, rough, trembling. "You'll burn yourself," he murmured. She shook her head. "I won't." He hesitated, then released her. She placed her palm gently over the wound. A faint glow flickered beneath her fingers. Not the violent flame of destruction, but something softer. Healing, almost. Kael's jaw tightened. His breath hitched. "Does it hurt?" she whispered. "No." A pause. "It feels like remembering something I shouldn't." She pulled her hand back slowly. The bleeding had stopped. Her silver mark pulsed faintly again. Kael's eyes fell to it. That strange, shimmering scar just below her collarbone. "That's the mark, isn't it?" She didn't answer. "The Moonlit Promise." The way he said it, reverent, quiet, made her shiver. "It burns," she said softly. "When I feel too much. Anger, fear, love. And what happens when it burns?" She looked away. "It reminds me that I shouldn't." "Shouldn't what?" "Feel anything at all." Her voice broke. She swallowed hard, trying to keep her composure, but the words came out jagged. "Every time I start to care for someone, Kael, this—" She gestured to the mark. "It flares like it's warning me, like it's punishing me for being human." Kael's expression softened. He moved closer, slow, deliberate, until the space between them was barely a breath. "Maybe it's not punishment," he said quietly. "Maybe it's a reminder that you're still alive." Her heart stuttered. You don't understand. He reached out, hesitated, then brushed his fingers against the glowing mark. The touch was feather-light, but the reaction was instant. The mark ignited under his fingertips, silver fire blooming like a heartbeat. She gasped. Her skin burned, not in pain, but in something far worse. Want. He didn't pull away. Then let it burn, he whispered. Time slowed. The fire between them crackled softly, its light dancing across their faces. Her breath mingled with his, shallow, uneven. Aria's heart pounded so hard she thought he might hear it. Her fingers trembled where they hovered near his chest. Every instinct screamed at her to run. Every scar inside warned her that this closeness, this heat, would destroy them both. But for once she didn't care. The space between them vanished. The world shrank to the rhythm of shared breaths, the electricity crackling between two broken souls who'd forgotten how to be afraid. And just as their lips almost met, a howl. Low, distant, then closer, another, then another. Kael froze. His eyes snapped toward the open window slit in the stone. They found us. Aria's pulse spiked. Who? Not mine, he said grimly. Scouts from the Bloodfangs, maybe worse. He pushed himself to his feet, grabbing the blade from beside the fire. But his wound slowed him. His movements were too heavy. Aria stood too, her voice trembling but fierce. You can't fight like this. I can't let them find you, and I can't let you die because of me. Their eyes locked, defiance meeting desperation. Then trust me, he said. Or leave. The words cut through her like steel. Trust, the one thing she'd forgotten how to do. But before she could answer, another howl split the night, closer this time, echoing through the rain. Kael moved toward the doorway. Stay behind me. Aria reached out, catching his arm. Kael. He turned, just long enough for her to see it in his eyes. Not anger, not fear, but something far more dangerous. Hope. Outside, the forest rustled. Shadows moved between trees, fast, coordinated. Aria's mark burned again, stronger this time, as if warning her that something greater than danger was coming. Kael tightened his grip on the blade. When I tell you to run, you run. No, she whispered. Not this time. He looked back at her, really looked, her hair wild, eyes glowing faint silver, firelight kissing her skin, a storm in human form, a curse he couldn't stop reaching for. You have no idea what you're worth, he said softly. Then the door shattered. Wolves poured in, teeth and fury and blood, and everything broke again. But that night, in that crumbling tower, beneath the whispering rain, before the chaos swallowed them whole, there had been a heartbeat, a single, impossible heartbeat, where two lost souls almost found peace in each other. Almost. Because fate had other plans, and the moon was still watching. The world always seems to betray you when you finally start to trust it again. The storm had broken by dawn, leaving the forest heavy with the scent of wet pine and ash. Smoke curled in the distance where Kael and Aria had fought through the night. The watchtower still stood, half ruined, half burned, a ghost of what they'd shared. Now, the dawn light cut through the trees like a blade, and that was how betrayal came, not in thunder, not in chaos, but in quiet, in the way the morning sun glowed like blood through the fog. The Shadow Ridge stronghold loomed ahead, a fortress carved from ancient stone and wolfbone. It was supposed to be safe. Kael had brought her back there after the battle, limping and bruised, his jaw set like steel. But the air was wrong. Too still. Too many eyes watched from the shadows as they entered. His council was waiting. 7 of them, dressed in black furs, circled like wolves scenting weakness. Their faces were grave. One stepped forward, an elder named Corvin, his voice brittle as frost. Alpha, he said, you bring fire into our den. Kael stiffened. She's under my protection. Your protection has cost us blood. Corvin hissed. 2 scouts died by dawn, burned beyond recognition. The words hung there, heavy, poisonous. Aria froze. What? No, I didn't. We found this, another elder said, tossing a shard of stone into the dirt between them. It glowed faintly, silver with black veins. Moonfire residue. Only her kind leaves this behind. The circle of eyes turned on her. Accusation, fear, hatred. She felt it like claws dragging across her skin. I didn't kill them, she said, her voice shaking. I swear it. But even as she spoke, doubt crept in. The mark on her chest was warm, always burning, always reminding her that destruction followed where she went. Her throat closed. It wasn't me. Then another voice cut through the tension. Deep, familiar, cruel. Oh, but it was. The air turned cold. Kael's head snapped up. From the shadows at the far end of the hall, a man emerged, tall, confident, his golden eyes gleaming with mockery. Lucian, the mate who had rejected her, the one who'd stood before the entire pack and said she wasn't worthy of the bond. He was supposed to be dead. Aria's breath caught. Her knees almost gave out. No, she whispered. You can't be here. Lucian smiled, slow, venomous. You always did underestimate me, Aria. He stepped closer, every movement deliberate. The other wolves bowed their heads as he passed, not out of respect, but fear. You destroyed everything you touched, he continued, even me, but fate has a funny way of forgiving monsters when they're useful. Kael moved between them, his voice like thunder. You're trespassing, Bloodfang. Lucien tilted his head. Funny, I thought you'd be grateful I brought the truth. He turned toward the council, his tone smooth, commanding, the tone of someone who had already poisoned their minds before he even arrived. Tell me, Alphas of Shadowridge, have you not wondered why her mark burns like the sun? Why every time she loses control, the earth itself screams? He pointed at Aria, his eyes glowing brighter. That is no gift of the moon. That is the curse of embers, the mark that ends bloodlines, the power that devours its host. Gasps rippled through the hall. Corvan looked at Kael. Is this true? Kael's jaw clenched. It's not that simple. Aria turned to him, her voice cracking. You knew? I suspected, he said quietly. But I wanted to... You knew, she repeated, louder now, the words shaking. Lucian smiled like a predator watching prey unravel. You see? Even your precious Alpha couldn't tell you the truth, because deep down, he knows what you are. Aria's heart pounded so hard it hurt. The fire under her skin stirred, restless, hungry. Kael reached for her arm. Aria, she jerked away. Don't touch me. The mark on her chest flared bright, silver bleeding into gold. The council flinched. You said you saw me, she whispered. All of me. Was that a lie, too? Kael's lips parted, but no words came. His silence was worse than betrayal, because silence meant doubt, and doubt was poison. Lucien saw it, and smiled wider. There it is, the truth. Even the mighty Kael hesitates, because he knows she'll burn him next. Enough, Kael growled. Then prove it, Lucian said. Prove she's not what I say she is. Let her stand before the blood moon and see if she survives. The words struck like lightning. The blood moon, the ancient rite of revelation, where lies were burned away and truth took form. No one survived it unscarred. Aria felt the weight of every eye on her, every judgment, every whisper. Her heart broke beneath it. You'll destroy her, Kael said, his voice low. Lucian's grin was cold. No, I'll set her free. And in that moment, something inside Aria snapped. The mark on her chest blazed white hot. Her skin shimmered, veins lit with silver flame. Kael's hand lifted toward her again, desperate. But it was too late. The fire exploded outward. It wasn't like before. Not wild, not uncontrolled, but deliberate, fierce, heartbroken. Flame swept across the hall, devouring banners, cracking stone, curling around Kael and the others like living serpents. Lucian stumbled back, shielding his face. Aria's voice shook the air. "You call me cursed, but I was made this way by the same moon that made you." Her eyes gleamed like molten silver. Tears burned down her cheeks and turned to steam before they could fall. "All I ever wanted was to belong." The roof above her cracked. "But you never wanted a healer. You wanted a weapon." Kael tried to move through the fire toward her. "Aria, please." But she stepped back, shaking her head. "No, you had your chance." For a heartbeat, the flames died down, just enough for him to see her face, broken and beautiful in the inferno. "You said you saw me," she whispered again, softer this time. "All of me." A tear escaped his eye. "I did. Then you should have fought for me." And with that, the fire roared to life again, consuming the hall, shattering windows, sending sparks spiraling into the dawn sky. When the smoke cleared, she was gone. Only ash remained where she had stood, and the faint scent of moonlight and sorrow. Kael fell to his knees amidst the ruins, his fingers digging into the scorched earth. Lucian's laughter echoed as he vanished into the mist. "You can't save her, Kael. The fire always consumes." But Kael didn't move. He stared into the horizon, eyes hollow, jaw trembling, and when he finally spoke, it was barely more than a whisper. "Then I'll walk through the fire." Outside, the forest burned for hours, a silent storm of light that could be seen from miles away. Some said the moon turned red that morning. Some said the flame itself spoke her name. But for Kael, it was the sound of loss, the echo of a heart breaking in the same rhythm as his own. And somewhere, far beyond the ashes, the wind carried a whisper, a promise, faint but unbroken. This isn't the end. The world had not slept since the night the forest burned. For days, smoke coiled through the mountains like ghosts mourning what had been lost. The once sacred woods of Shadow Ridge now lay blackened and charred, the trees standing like silent witnesses to the end of peace. The packs moved like soldiers under the weight of prophecy. Every howl that split the air was a warning. Every shadow is a sign. The blood moon was coming, and with it, war. The council gathered at the ancient altar, a place carved into the mountain long before the first alpha drew breath. The stone was slick with dew, and the scent of wolf blood hung heavy. Lucian stood at its center, his armor dark as oil, his golden eyes gleaming with triumph. He had taken control after Aria's disappearance, feeding the wolves fear, promising safety through obedience. "The moon has spoken," he declared to the gathered packs. "The cursed firebearer has fallen. The age of cleansing begins." His voice echoed like thunder across the valley. Warriors knelt. Elders bowed. Even the stars seemed to dim beneath his command. But Kael didn't kneel. He stood apart, his left arm bound from wounds still healing, his eyes hollow with guilt. He hadn't spoken since the night Aria vanished. His pack had begged him to surrender, to join Lucian, but he couldn't. He wouldn't, because in the ashes of that fire, he had felt her heartbeat. Somewhere out there, she was still alive. And then the wind changed. A low hum rippled through the valley. Soft at first, like a whisper carried on the cold. The torches flickered. Wolves lifted their heads, uneasy. The hum deepened into a sound that wasn't quite thunder, not quite a song. It came from the east, from the ruins of the forest, and then light. A streak of silver split the clouds, painting the altar in radiant flame. The ground trembled. The air smelled of rain and ozone and burning moonlight. Lucian turned, eyes narrowing. No. From the smoke, a figure emerged, barefoot, cloaked in silver fire. Her hair glowed white, eyes burning with the light of 1,000 suns. Every step she took turned ash into bloom. Aria had returned. The wolves drew back instinctively. Their bodies remembered something older than fear, reverence. Her voice cut through the silence like a blade wrapped in silk. You wanted a monster. She stopped at the base of the altar, the flames swirling around her form like armor forged from rage itself. You made one. Lucien's expression faltered for the first time. You should have burned to dust. I did, she said softly, but I came back as something your lies couldn't kill. Her gaze swept over the elders, the same ones who had watched her be condemned, their faces twisted between awe and terror. You fed the prophecy with blood, she said. Now choke on it. Kael stepped forward before he even realized he was moving. Her eyes met his. And for a heartbeat, the war around them vanished. The guilt, the silence, the hesitation, all of it melted away under the weight of that look. She wasn't the same woman he had lost. She was more, stronger, wilder, but she was still his heart. Aria. She shook her head, her voice steady. You don't have to stand with me. I already am. Lucien's snarl broke the moment. Touch her, and I'll gut you both. He unsheathed his blade, a crescent-forged weapon etched with runes of the old gods. The sky above them bled red as the moon began to rise. The prophecy had said, when the moon turns to blood, the child of flame and the wolf of shadow will break the curse or doom the world. No one knew which fate would win. Lucien raised the blade toward the moon, and the altar began to glow. The runes carved into its stone pulsed, summoning something ancient, something that writhed beneath the surface of the world. The ground split open. From the fissure rose a creature of shadow and smoke, taller than trees, with claws like obsidian and eyes like molten glass. Its body was half wolf, half nightmare, forged from every curse ever whispered beneath the moonspawn. Lucien spread his arms. Behold the truth of her bloodline. The monster roared, shaking the mountains. Wolves cowered. The elders fell to their knees. Aria did not move. Her flame pulsed brighter, answering the roar with a light that burned through the fog. You bound it to me, she said. You made me your sacrifice. She stepped forward, voice rising with every word. But I am not your sacrifice. The creature lunged. Kael shifted instantly, his bones cracking, his body twisting into the black wolf form that had once terrified kingdoms. He launched himself between Aria and the beast, claws slashing, fangs sinking deep into shadow. But the moonspawn was endless. Every wound he made sealed in seconds, smoke turning back to flesh. Lucien laughed, his voice echoing through the chaos. You can't kill what was never alive. No, Aria said, raising her hands, fire swirling. But I can set it free. The flames rose, silver white, pure and searing. They wrapped around her arms, her shoulders, her heart. She could feel the mark on her chest burning, pulling, calling. The power inside her begged to be unleashed. Aria, don't. Kael's voice was strained, half human, half beast. It's the only way. She moved like light itself, her body a storm of fire and wind. The moonspawn struck, claws tearing through the air, but she met the blow head-on. The impact shook the altar. Fire and shadow collided, forming a vortex that split the sky. Kael fought to reach her, tearing through waves of darkness, his fur singed and blood running down his muzzle. Every breath was painful, every heartbeat a war. But he could see her, standing at the center of the storm, eyes glowing brighter than the moon. She was channeling it, all of it, the curse, the prophecy, the grief, the love. Lucien's screams filled the air as his control over the monster broke. The power he'd summoned began to consume him. You think you can defy destiny? He roared. No, she said, voice calm, filled with fire. I am destiny. The flames burst outward, swallowing everything. Kael ran into the inferno, his body burning, his vision fading, and found her at its heart. She was kneeling, hands pressed against the monster's chest. Silver veins of light spread through its body like cracks in glass. It's not evil, she whispered. It's painful. She closed her eyes. And pain can be healed. Her fire changed, softening from fury to warmth. The light shifted from silver to gold, from destruction to restoration. The moonspawn howled, its form dissolving, fragments of light scattering into the night like falling stars. Kael fell beside her, catching her before she hit the ground. "Aria," he gasped, "stay with me." Her smile was faint, fragile. "You see me now?" He cupped her face, trembling. "Always." But the mark on her chest had turned crimson. The fire inside her was dying, consuming what little strength remained. The moon above them bled red. The prophecy fulfilled itself in silence. Kael held her close, feeling her heartbeat slow. Around them, the valley glowed with reborn light, the earth healing, the curse purged. Her fire had saved them, but it had taken her with it. "Don't you dare," he whispered, pressing his forehead to hers. "Don't you dare leave me again." Her hand brushed his cheek. "You once told me to let it burn." Her eyes softened, the light in them fading. "Now I'm free." And then she was gone. The fire around them died. The night was still. Kael screamed into the emptiness, a sound so raw the mountains seemed to tremble in sorrow. The wolves knelt, the elders bowed. Even Lucian, half consumed by his own curse, fell silent. The moon above turned from red to white, and in the wind that followed, a whisper, faint, eternal. "You are not alone." That night became legend. The moon of blood marked not the end of a curse, but the birth of a queen, the flame-bearer who chose to heal instead of destroy. Her name was carved into stone, sung in every pack, carried on the wind that brushed the forest she saved. And Kael, the wolf who walked through fire, would guard that memory for eternity. Because love like that does not die, it only changes form. And somewhere, beneath the eternal glow of the moon, the embers of her flame still burned, waiting for the world to need her again. Silence, the kind of silence that lives after the storm has gone. Heavy, sacred, trembling with everything that can't be spoken. Kael knelt in the center of the ruined altar, the ashes of prophecy drifting around him like snow. His hands were shaking, cradling what remained of her, warmth fading beneath his touch, silver fire dimming to soft, aching glow. The world was quiet. The wolves had fallen still. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. And then, her voice, not from her lips but from the air itself, soft, distant, threaded with the light of eternity. Maybe the moon never wanted heroes, only survivors. It was neither hope nor sorrow. It was true, bare, cold, and beautiful. Kael's throat tightened. His chest ached with a pain words could never reach. He pressed his forehead against her hair, whispering her name as if it could pull her back through the veil. Aria. But the flame that once burned to defy gods and kings now flickered like a dying star. A few final sparks clung to her skin, soft silver embers that pulsed faintly, as though breathing. One by one they lifted into the air, drifting upward, caught in the pale light of the moon. Each spark whispered something as it rose. Maybe it was a memory, maybe it was a promise, maybe it was her way of saying goodbye. Kael's tears fell silently, not because he was weak, but because love, when it is real, demands something from us. It breaks and remakes. He looked to the sky, at the moon, now full and white again, calm after its storm of blood. It watched him like a witness, like a judge, like a friend. And for the first time, Kael didn't know if he should bow to it or curse it. "You asked her to burn," he murmured. "And she did. Was that what you wanted?" The night gave no answer, only the sound of the forest slowly breathing again, leaves whispering, wolves stirring, rivers beginning to flow through cracks of stone. Life reclaiming itself. But at what cost? Aria's last ember landed in his palm, a single flicker of silver light. It pulsed once, twice, then faded. He closed his hand around it, pressing it to his heart, and in that moment, the narrator's voice lowers to a whisper, intimate, almost pleading. Would you have chosen her, or feared her too? Would you have stood by the cursed flame when the world called her a monster? Would you have seen the girl beneath the fire, or turned away like the rest? The choice lingers, echoing like footsteps in the dark. If this story lit something inside you, if her courage made you feel something you can't quite name, then don't let the flame die here. A pause, the sound of distant wind through trees. A heartbeat beneath the quiet. Subscribe to Moonlight Mate Stories, where every heart beats beneath the same moon. Because maybe, deep down, we all carry a little of Aria's fire. Maybe we all crave to be seen, not as the world calls us, but as we truly are. And under this moon, you're never alone. The sky bled red, a raw slash of color across the horizon. Dawn had come, but it was no gentle awakening. It was the kind of morning that carries the weight of everything lost, everything shattered, and everything waiting to rise again. Kael moved through the wreckage, each step leaving impressions in ash and charred soil. The battlefield behind him whispered of death, fallen wolves, broken weapons, scattered fire remnants. Yet ahead, the forest beckoned, dark and untouched, a sanctuary and a threat all at once. Cradled against his chest was Aria. Her form felt impossibly fragile, and yet the warmth of her presence lingered, like embers refusing to die. Her silver fire, once blazing bright, now pulsed faintly beneath her skin, a heartbeat almost imperceptible, but stubborn. Kael's own breaths came ragged, heavy with grief, anger, and a quiet, dangerous hope. He didn't dare look back. Every shadow in the trees seemed to watch him, every rustle of leaves a whisper of warning. And then, movement. A silhouette emerged from the mist of dawn. A figure so still it could have been carved from the very shadows themselves. But when the light struck, her eyes glimmered, silver, piercing, alive. She is not the only one with fire in her blood. The words hung, heavier than the air itself, vibrating through the forest, through Kael, through the very ground beneath him. A pulse of energy, distant and intimate all at once, shivered across the landscape. Kael froze. His jaw tightened. He felt the hair on his neck rise, a wolf's instinct reaching for the scent of threat, of challenge, of destiny unfinished. The woman stepped closer, and the mist curled around her like a cloak. Her presence was fierce, yet impossibly calm. Every movement was measured, deliberate. A predator, a warrior, and something else. Something that carried the same mark, the same untamed power that had once defined Aria. Kael's mind raced, heart hammering in the same rhythm as the faint pulse of Aria's fading embers. He could not name her. He could only sense the danger, the promise, the fire waiting to awaken. The forest itself seemed to bow, leaves shivering, branches bending under a wind that had not yet come. Silence stretched, heavy, thick, full of expectation. It waited for the next act, the next revelation. Kael's eyes met hers, and the world shifted. In that gaze was knowledge, understanding, and a challenge that made every nerve in his body ache. This was no random figure. This was destiny stepping forward, cloaked in silver and fire. The sun, now rising fully, caught the silver in her eyes, igniting them. They glowed brighter, more alive than any torch, any flame Kael had ever seen. And yet, they were not unkind. They were patient, waiting, testing, and inviting. A heartbeat, another. And the whisper returned, carried on the wind as though the forest itself spoke. She is not the only one, and this is far from over. Kael tightened his hold on Aria, feeling her pulse, fragile, stubborn, alive. He took a slow step forward, and the forest seemed to respond. Shadows deepened, then receded, creating a path he could not yet understand, but instinctively knew he must follow. The silence pressed against him, but not in fear. It was anticipation, the calm before the storm that had only just begun. And there, just beyond the first trees, the faintest shimmer of silver fire danced. Not Aria's, not yet, but unmistakably alive. A spark of the same magic, the same bloodline, calling to Kael. A promise that the story was not finished, that the battles, the love, the betrayals, and the destiny were all still waiting in the shadows. Kael swallowed, voice hoarse but steady, speaking to no one and everyone at once. Then we prepare. Whatever comes, we are ready. The wind carried the words away, and in the distance, that silver-eyed figure watched, silent, waiting, calculating, fire in her veins, destiny in her eyes. The ground beneath Kael trembled again, faint, almost imperceptible, but it was enough. Enough to tell him that the earth itself had felt the shift. That power, ancient and untamed, was stirring. That the moon's flame, once thought contained in one soul, was awakening elsewhere. And as the first rays of blood-red sunlight broke fully over the treetops, Kael understood. Aria's story was only the beginning. Somewhere, a new power waited. Somewhere, a new challenge waited. Somewhere, fire would rise again, and hearts would be tested beyond anything they had survived. The narrator's voice grows soft, lingering, like the echo of a bell across the forest. This is not the end, it is only the shadow before dawn. And when the moon calls again, when the fire rises, who will stand with her? Who will fall? Who will choose the side of the heart? And who will fear the flame? The wind whispered through the trees. The embers of Aria's power faded to a soft silver mist. Kael adjusted his grip, stepping deeper into the forest,